Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup, and in today's video I've got, of course, boxing and UFC and news. If you're new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you like it, and let's get straight into it. So, of course, we're going to start off with the boxing news. So, Mayweather won by disqualification in round 6 versus Gotti 3. That was an interesting fight. Gotti 3, I didn't think he would ever have got stopped by actual punches. I always thought it would have been a lot to knock out Gotti 3, and I was correct in that aspect. And yeah, it was a pretty wild ending, and I'm sure money-wise, it's probably going to be the most entertaining thing that Mayweather's gonna probably want to do it again. And like I mentioned later on, there is talks about that possibly happening again. Thousand will fight Luna on the 2nd of September, a good unification fight. Azim versus Fazayan was cancelled due to Azim getting an injury. Hunter will fight Palmer on the 24th of June. Canelo is set to fight Charlo next. There's been talks of multiple different opponents, but it seems like Charlo's probably the most likely at this current moment in time. But my luck and everybody else's luck, it's probably going to change by next week, and it'll probably end up somebody else. I don't know. But it's a good fight. It's a big fight, definitely. Jonas is set to fight Wyatt on the 1st of July. Dixon is set to fight Fanders on the 2nd of September. Heffron versus Chelly is cancelled due to Heffron getting an injury. Unfortunately for Heffron, and hope he gets well soon, and hopefully that fight can be remade soon. Gotti 3 was suspended, but Mayweather versus Gotti 3 is in talks for a rematch, so they'll probably just do it where he's not suspended. And like I said, it'd probably be the most likely one to happen next for Mayweather. At least he's got somewhat of a direction of where he can go next. O'Connor has joined Conlan Boxing. Vianello will fight Keane on the 19th of August. Bridges is now being trained by David Caldwell, and fair play to Caldwell. That is a big name to have in his gym now. And of course, if you haven't watched the interview I did with him, it was a great interview. Taylor versus Bamba. Belcher versus Roman Jr. Swarms versus Nich LMAO versus Bidev versus Johnston. Herrera versus Action Man, and Rose and Slice Jr. versus Dean the Great and Kra will fight on the 22nd of July. These Misfits cards are kind of getting a bit out of control, to be completely honest. I feel like the tag team was a lot, and now we've got 4 people fighting each other. Somebody's going to get hurt. I am definitely calling that now, and I do think it will end up happening, and it's going to mess things up a lot. But we are kind of just waiting for that at the moment, and I suppose to an extent, as long as everybody's just happy with being these kind of, like everybody says, WWE like people, that's not going to merge too much into the professional side of things unless you can prove that you are definitely at that level, then I don't mind it. But I still just ain't a massive fan of these professional boxers coming and going into this, because of course it's the big paydays and that's what they're going to go into there for, but it's just like, there's just like, this isn't YouTuber boxing anymore. This is some random thing, and these pros should stay what they're doing, and there's been a format for this in a long time, and I feel like that should be the case. But it shouldn't just be pro boxers coming over and just battering other pros, because otherwise that can just stay on a pro card, or pros just battering YouTubers, because that's just a bit unfair in my opinion. Either way, I don't hate it, but it's getting a little bit out of control. Moving on, Senesia will fight Udica on the 20th of July. Cortez versus Martinez. Nova, Polanco, Balderas, Shirhi and Murata will fight on the 20th of July. Bayer will rematch Korn on the 22nd of July. The IBF have ordered Opetaya versus Riakpur. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Opetaya is probably going to end up vacating his belt, but it's been ordered either way. Steen will fight Dean on the 22nd of July. Lopez has vacated his WBO world title. That is interesting. Not entirely sure what's going on with that, but seems like something's going on with that. Joshua versus White may be off due to White wanting too much money. That's what I believe Eddie Hearn said. That would be a shame, because that's kind of the fight that I'm kind of hyped to see now. But of course, that would be a shame. But of course, there's other big fights as well out there still for AJ. Hunter will fight Bavington on the 1st July. Golovkin has vacated his IBO world title, meaning that he's probably maybe going to be retiring soon because that's his last world title. And he's either lost or vacated the other ones. And so, yeah, it seems like we might be seeing the last of Golovkin, which is a shame. But he might have one more fight left in him. Wilder and Haney are set to join Skill Challenge Entertainment. McGregor will fight Robles on the 21st of July. Paul is set to feature in his own Netflix documentary. Hearn wants to make Scotty vs Rivas next. I do really like that fight. Dickinson is set to fight Dennis. Fury has received an offer from the UFC to fight Jones next. Do I think that will happen? Probably not. Is it an entertaining thought? Yes. Is it obvious who's going to win? To an extent, yes. Depending on what aspect it's in. If it's in UFC, Jones. If it's in boxing, Fury. Kind of feel like that's going to be the case with most of these crossover fights if they're going to be like this. But I just don't see it happening, to be completely honest. Crosby will fight Chalmers on the 15th of July. Ennis will fight Villa on the 8th of July. Matthias will fight Lipinets on the 26th of August. Aziz is set to fight Boatsi on the 19th of August. That is, of course, a big fight, but I always feel like Boatsi's past this at the moment. But I mean, it's a big domestic fight and one of the only real big ones that's on Boxer, to be completely honest. But it's still big, and if they're both happy to do it, and they're both happy to do it, I suppose. Case won by unanimous decision versus Kawamoto. Machizuki won by TK in round 1 versus Nishizawa. Yano drew versus Tagawa. Kiduchi drew versus Hiroshima. Matsuda won via unanimous decision versus Suzuki. Takayama won via TK in round 4 versus Kawara to become Japanese super flyweight champion. Hiruta won via TK in round 1 versus Morton to remain WBO World Super Flyweight Champion. That was a big win, and of course to get her out there in one round, fair play to her, and even bigger fights in the future for her now, especially if she's going to be getting rid of these people like that as she is. Fury won via points versus Nazarian. Gustavo won via points versus Shola. Azim won via TK in round 1 versus Angulo. Gilly won via K in round 6 versus Corey. Shame to see Corey lose, but that was a good knockout, to be fair to Gilly. Chamberlain won via points versus Bregion. Riley won via TK in round 4 versus Taj. Dubois won via points versus Lascano. Clark won via points versus Watch. McKenna won via unanimous decision versus Lehman to become WBC International Middleweight Champion. Basil Dua won via unanimous decision versus Fruto. Hill won via TK in round 4 versus Davis. Madrid won via split decision versus Aponte. Fuchs won via unanimous decision versus Smith. Guzman won via KO in round 8 versus Ali to become IBF Intercontinental Super Bantamweight Champion. That is another big name, kind of gone for Matchroom now, but it'd be interesting to see if I'd imagine she's still going to fight for Matchroom, but that is a big loss for her. Giasso won via unanimous decision versus Calderon. Prograis won via split decision versus Aria to remain WBC World Super Lightweight Champion. I feel like, of course, it wasn't the best performance for Prograis. Probably lost. Maybe it was close. It was close. Prograis, the knockdown definitely helped him out. I believe he hurt Zaria in the later rounds. But I feel like Zaria was just more active. I feel like maybe Prograis let the pressure get to him, or maybe overlooked Zaria a bit, and just wasn't throwing as much as he could have, and wasn't as doing as much as he probably could have and should have. And I feel like if he'd have just turned up at any time, he probably could have got him out, but he just didn't. And to be completely honest, I've got a little bit, if I can remember off the top of my head, a little format which I'd love for this Super Lightweight division. Hear me out. I want to know your opinions. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you don't agree, if you fancy commenting in general. So, Prograis, I want to see him fight Davis next. Romero, I want to see him fight Garcia next. Taylor, I want to see fight Catterall. And trying to remember, there is somebody else here I've just completely forgotten. This is where you need to write everything down. Zaria, I think, could fight another upcoming contender. That could be anybody because he put up a good fight there. And here we go. Barboza Jr., I want to see fight Paro. Hopefully that fight could happen because I feel like that would be an amazing fight. But I feel like all of them kind of fights would be good fights and should be, in my opinion, where the kind of division goes. Of course, everybody wants to see that. Of course, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Lopez, if he stays or not. I would personally like to see Haney stay in the lightweight division just for one more fight, being that Shakur Stevenson fights. And I think for the moment, the super lightweight division, of course, if Haney comes up, and probably other fighters will as well, then it's going to be a stacked division, probably at some point more than the lightweight division will be. Taliva won via KO in round 1 versus Licky. Ogden won via TKO in round 1 versus Shklebs. Larfield won via unanimous decision versus Castino. Pilcher won via KO in round 1 versus Heppy to become Australian heavyweight champion. Hamdan won via stoppage in round 4 versus Frost to become Australian super lightweight champion. Goodman won via split decision versus Aleem. Close fight. Everybody kind of thought it'd be a close fight, but good to see Goodman getting a win, and hopefully he gets a world title fight now. Tszyu won via KO in round 1 versus Ocampo to remain the WBO interim world super welterweight champion. What a knockout for Tszyu. Huge for him, and devastating knockout, and just showing how good he is and how much better than his opponents he is. And everybody can sit and say, oh, he's not a good opponent, Ocampo and that, but it's just because he's not getting any other fights, and I respect him for wanting to be active and wanting to show that he is ready for this world title fight and he deserves it, and he's the only person that deserves it, and he deserves it more than anybody else, and hopefully now he will get this title fight. And if not, then I feel like he should just get given a world title at this point, and fair play to him. Eubank Jr. is set to fight Ben on the 23rd of September. Do I think it will happen? Possibly. Maybe not at that date, because I know that they're wanting to get it in the UK, and that's a date that'll probably be in Saudi. But either way, it probably will happen eventually, but we'll have to wait and see. Moving on now to the UFC news. Neal is set to fight Gary on the 19th of August. Weidman will fight Tavares on the 19th of August. Holloway will fight Zhang on the 26th of August. Sandhagen will fight Nurmagomedov on the 5th of August. Garn will fight Spivak on the 2nd of September. Dalby will win by unanimous decision versus Salikov. Torres won by KO in round 1 versus Mota. Sabrahini won via submission in round 2 versus Almeida. Petrosian won via decision versus Duncan. Sorikian won via KO in round 3 versus Silva. And Cannonier won via decision versus Vittori. That was a great fight. It was good to see Cannonier letting his hands go, and he broke the record, I believe, in the middleweight division for the most significant strikes, and that's what you need to see. That is when the Cannonier's at his best. Of course, Vittori is such a tough fighter, and such credit to him for lasting that whole fight, and he did land his own fair share of couple good punches here and there off the counter, but Cannonier was just too strong and imposed his will, got better throughout the fight, never looked really troubled, bar possibly the first round a little bit early on, but other than that, he looked dominant, and that's what he needed after a close fight for himself. And it'll be interesting to see where both fighters go now. I think Vittori is more than welcome up in the light heavyweight division. I think Cannonier is more than welcome up in the light heavyweight division, and I would love to see any fights in there. I don't know if there's anything really left for either an M2 in the middleweight division at the moment, but if Duplessis wins versus Whittaker, other than that, I don't really think there's any other options, because I don't think either of them are going to get a title shot again anytime soon. But what a fight, good to see, and yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.